Okay. Hello and welcome to the Snap Count. I am Emilio Calderon, and I'm joined by the Director of Tourism for the city of Pensacola, Florida. That is Caleb Catlin. How the hell are you, pal?
I'm great. I don't know how great of a tour guide I'm going to be for Pensacola. I'm going to be like, listen, Jacksonville's that way type
I don't,
shit.
I don't know how
go
many people.
go up to Mobile, like
It's
better
a tough
beach.
job. It's a tough job, man. I've never been to Florida. I've never had the displeasure of being to Florida. No offense to people from Florida, but I know there are areas that are considered visitable, if we
It's
can consider that a
all
word. Yeah,
it's all in sections. You've got the Panhandle, you've got the middle area, and
middle area, right?
you've got Miami. Like it's not like it's just Fort Lauderdale and Miami. And then you
Fort
got
Lauderdale.
and then you sort of cobble together Orlando and Tampa, and then it's just like that gross Marlboro cigarette smell of the Panhandle.
It's still they still chain smoke like it's Mad Men over there, right? Yeah.
Yes, yeah. No, it feels like an episode of MASH.
What was I thinking? I think I don't. No, not out. I thought I don't know why this came to the 504 and IG post Miami.
Yeah, that's how they spell it there.
That's how they
up in
spell it.
Pensacola.
Yeah. Before we get into football, people who consume our work may know that Caleb used to live in California, and I guess we can quietly announce that you'll be revisiting California. Are you anything you're looking forward to in particular, other than seeing people of course?
I am looking forward to see what my bank account looks like after all that.
It's true.
I crunched a bit of numbers, and I mean, it's $2,000 alone if I were to just go the hotel route, and then it's a tentative $700 if I were to rent a car for 2 weeks.
Like, I think when people go to LA or New York, you assume it's not going to be that bad because you're like, oh well, it's not like I'm going to be eating in a nice restaurant or going to Erewhon every day. It's like, well, like you should kind of just assume that, honestly.
It's
You just
just
might not, like,
just in
regardless of where you're
case,
actually going.
right? Like just in case, you got to be like willing to put away like $2,000 because that's kind of where I'm at right now. I
Never
never
know.
know if I need like again, and that's me like couch crashing a part of that situation. Like a week in like a 3-star hotel ran me like a grand roughly, and
It's not
that's
the worst, but
a
yeah.
Hilton type of experience. And I'm just like, at that rate, I might as well just bum it out. But yeah, like I don't know. I'm looking good so far. I'm not looking forward to seeing it all drain for me. Everything else, though, I'm playing it by ear. I don't have any like serious plans, but like if folks are out there and they want to come fuck with me, I'll be out there.
Or we'll plug both of our Zelle, Cash App, and Venmos at the end of this episode. But yeah, we did the our power hour preseason power hour, which was so much fun. We just I don't know, this just feels right that we do this again.
I
So
mean that it seems like kind of the plan for the football season, the way I see it.
yeah,
But
I'm
it's not nearly as smart analysis as the written word.
as the
Like
written word.
yeah, I gotta be totally honest. Like when I was doing this, I was like, man, this definitely feels different than like the writing aspect because I can actually think and I can like reference stats. This is
And
totally
that is the
vibe
beauty of
based.
it. And that is the beauty of it.
This
That's
is
why we do it.
completely like, oh, this is what I saw after like looking at it. I didn't do any in depth looking or thinking or whatnot. I'm legit just shooting the shit right now.
Stephen A. Smith, come outside. Come outside.
maybe
It's warm
don't.
out here. It's
Maybe
warm out here.
maybe don't after today's clip. Maybe don't. Somebody will probably snuff that man.
If you'd like to invite us to First Take, I wouldn't say no. Obviously, like,
No,
come
I
on, I
wouldn't say
absolutely
no.
wouldn't say no.
Come
Who
on.
would say no? Like, as much as that's not like our vibe, who would say no? If Mina Kimes can kill it on First Take, granted she's a genius, like,
Sure.
which I will say,
Yeah.
like, I forgot when this was, but an episode of hers I listened to, she openly admitted, like, when I start my mornings out on First Take and then I have to do something else, I'm just like, I'm a different person. I'm angry. I'm pumped.
Right, because like you gotta like listen to him riff for a minute, and you're just like, where do I
And you
even
you
like
could be
start to
spitting
respond?
like the most like well struck. You could be spitting like a real like you could just I don't like an
Well,
academic paper, and he'll just sit there with that fucking face, like.
well, Dominique, when I was looking at the footage, like, and it just becomes a whole thing, and I'm like, was he really looking at the footage, or is he like? It feels like a rib.
But all jokes aside, yes. So for the foreseeable future, we will be doing this to replace the written column, or if this doesn't happen, assume the written column will happen. But yeah, we do have some structure to this still. There are some mildly funny things. We're going to start every week with what I call the pre-snap, which is just recapping league news and some injury news. It was week one, so there wasn't like a whole lot. But we'll start with contract news. Speaking of the Dallas Cowboys, they did finally put ink to paper at like the funniest possible time, an hour before games kicked off.
I
They
think
did
that's
finally.
I think that's why the Cowboys played that way. To be honest, like that's that fresh paycheck type of play right there. Like,
Like
you
it
know what, I'm
was
fucking running it up
it
right
was
now.
weird, but like it kind of that's what it felt like. But yes, they signed Dak Prescott to a 4-year, $240 million extension with $231 million guaranteed, and $80 million of that is a bonus. That does make him the highest paid quarterback in NFL history, right ahead of three guys who got their deals in the past calendar year as well. That's Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, and Jordan Love, who all I think equate to about 55 million for AAV. And in Cincinnati, the Bengals, Jamar Chase does not have a new deal. He did play. He was not very good. The whole team was not very good. Well, sure, we'll get to them later. T. Higgins did not get a new deal either. He was injured though, so that could be a situation to monitor. That looks like, again, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. That looks like a situation that could get ugly for both teams. Speaking of a situation that's ugly for both teams, the New York Jets, they're supposed to be star defensive end Hassan Reddick is still holding out. If I can recall correctly, he is the only person in the NFL still holding out, as it
Mm-hmm.
has not gotten a new deal or has not suited up regardless of the deal.
Yeah.
So that is a situation to monitor. And in terms of free agents, there aren't a lot of big free agents left, but Ryan Tannehill is a free agent, and so that is something to monitor with mostly, I would say, the bottom half of the league, but it could
Mm.
be interesting, especially with like teams in transition, rebuilding, or even the rookie quarterbacks. But yeah, that is something to monitor. Do you have anything to say about
Uh,
contracts?
I saw this tweet recently that was like, I just got more responsibility at work and now I'm miserable type of deal. And somebody quote tweeted it with just a plain picture of Malik Willis on the Packers, and I thought that shit was hilarious because I was like, okay, like this could be a disaster, and then they gotta go pick up Ryan Tannehill.
How awesome would it be if the Packers quarterback room was Ryan Tannehill and Malik Willis? It's a
Because
non-zero chance. It's a non-zero chance. That's all
and
I'm
they would
saying.
and they would legit play the exact same as the
The
Titans.
same
No
way,
bullshit.
yeah. And other league headlines, kind of a nice headline was new places and new faces. A lot of movement through free agency and trades. We got a few people who shine, a few who struggled. I know this is a guy you were very skeptical of, but Saquon Barkley, at least week one, got off to a hot start. I did see an insane stat, which is this is only the second season in Barkley's 7-year career in which he's experienced at least one day being over 500. One day, not like weeks, just one day. One.
Oh, God bless. I mean, yeah, I'm still skeptical because it's a running back. Like, I don't know, Joe Mixon had a great game against the Colts. Like, the shit just happens that way. Jordan Mason just went off, and like CMC's the best running back in the league. Like, I don't know, man. This shit just happens.
Man, the running back union. We need to unleash them on you, honestly. Just
What are they
like,
gonna do? They get
I
paid
mean,
like they get paid in crumbs, bro. Be a battering ram. I'd pick up soccer instead of being mad at me.
Staying on the positive, I'll preface this by saying, granted, it was against a very weak New York Giants defense, but the Vikings had a very positive week one. Sam Darnold, who was supposed to be just, I think, the veteran presence for JJ McCarthy, and running back Aaron Jones, who cross paths in interdivision. They did both look really good, which I am noting, like, not just because they're new, but week one they looked really good for week one, which I'm expecting a lot of teams with new people or not to just kind of warm up to this season. Kind of feels like the vibe.
It's the Giants. I didn't have much intel there.
I'm just saying, Caleb. We like to let people enjoy their little victories. That's all. But we can get negative because in terms of we get to the quarterbacks who moved. In Atlanta, I will just say Kirk Cousins did not look good. He threw 2 interceptions, one of which was, I think, objectively egregious, throwing into a double onto, I forget who was left side. We'll get to them, but your face right. I want to keep it moving. No.
You're being nice as hell.
We'll get there. We'll get there. But on the other side, Justin Fields was aggressively average. He wasn't terrible. He wasn't bad, but he was, I think the best way to put it was aggressively, not just average, aggressively so. Because Russell Wilson was out for week one. He has a calf injury, which they are monitoring. It shouldn't be. He's not on IR, but it is a week-to-week thing.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious because they scored 18 points. So I figured they'd scored 1, but no, it was in fact the Steelers won off 6 Chris Boswell field goals. So shout out anybody who had Chris Boswell in fantasy. And stick with quarterbacks just for one more week one headline, which is rookie quarterbacks struggled immensely. Rough debuts for Caleb Williams and Bo Nix, but week one, it's week one.
We're giving rookie quarterback very loosely to Bo Nix because Bo Nix is like 38 years old.
We saw flashes from Jayden Daniels, but again, Jayden Daniels we know is a project, as is that entire team, I think.
Yeah.
But I don't want to sound like I have my hater hat on, so I'm going to frame this as a stat, which I will point out is insane. There are 3 quarterbacks who have thrown 42-plus attempts in a game, and they only garnered less than 138 yards in NFL history. Do you want to guess who they are?
No.
You can't even guess.
I can't even guess.
They are 39-year-old Ben Roethlisberger in his last season.
Hell yeah.
Jesse Palmer.
Hell yeah.
And Bo Nix.
I've got another stat on the Bo Nix.
Go. Yes.
I saved this specifically for my hating on Bo Nix. He was 2 for 12 pass yards that are 10 yards. So, like, anything past 10-yard throws, he was 2 for 12 with 2 interceptions and 3 more interceptable balls. He absolutely did not look decent. And everybody's like, oh, he's a rookie quarterback, clean slate. I'm like, that's bullshit. The man is 27 and a rookie. That's not, like, no. At this rate, bro, if you don't know what you're doing, bro, like, go to the back.
I want to point out for people who don't really know us as well. It's insane to me that Caleb kept that in the bag because usually you would not really care about the hard stat line. The fact that you held on to that.
I bookmarked it because I looked at somebody showed the next gen stats and I was like, this is an insane picture. And then
I know that was one of those things you bookmarked when you saw that. You're like, that's what's that mean? That's I'll be waking up extra early, so I'm
extra early so I can hate, bro. Extra early.
That's exactly what that
this is disgusting. He completed just 2 of these passes. One of them was a little over 15 yards, and one of them was 23 yards, and just a whole bunch of real Derek Carr ass picture right there. Kamara's over to my right.
Oh, come on. Don't be rude to Derek Carr. Bo Nix couldn't get 1 DPI in that game. Come on.
Come
on.
But that is one of his that's one of his prototypical oh yeah, shit, Josh Jacobs throw it over there type shits.
Yeah. I have nothing to say about the Broncos later on in this episode, so I'm sorry to. Actually, I'm a Chargers fan, so I'm not sorry. Whatever, it's fine. I do want to sneak one more headline in here, which is dynamic kickoff actually showed some early promise, early returns. It feels like teams are kind of holding on in terms of like tactical stuff, but I did have this bookmarked. 34% of kickoffs this week one were returned, up from only 20.5% last season, and we already had a kickoff return for a touchdown. That was DJ Dallas for the Cardinals versus there were only 4 all of last season. So yeah, promising early returns. Uh, Moving on from headlines to we actually have like a decent amount of injury news for week one. We brought up the Packers in passing, but Jordan Love, for those of you who do not watch Friday Night Football, that was a thing in week one, which was really weird. Honestly, I don't know how much I enjoyed it. It was weird. Would have
Yeah.
liked the break, but yes. Jordan Love has an MCL sprain, and the initial timetable for his return is 3 to 6 weeks. Reports are they are not looking at any quarterbacks such as Ryan Tannehill because they are hoping Love's on the earlier side of that return table. But the only 2 quarterbacks they have under contract are Malik Willis, who came in for one play at the end of the game, and Sean Clifford, who was the backup last year, and he's on the practice squad right now. But we don't. I don't want to talk about them yet. But just for reference, their next 3 games are they're hosting the Colts, they are away to Tennessee, and then they host the Vikings, which is manageable. And then, but the next 3 after that are away to the Rams, they host
Yep.
the Cardinals, and then they host the Texans. So, food for thought for those monitoring the Packers and their quarterback situation. Sunday Night Football gave us a really great game with the Rams and the Lions. It was not great for the Rams health wise. Puka Nacua came out with a knee injury. I did not write down the specifics for this, but as I understand it, it is a sprain. I think it's also the MCL, but I think he's similar in the 3 to 4 week region. But I think they're treating it like a week to week, like they're hoping he can come back as soon as possible. But for those of you who didn't watch the game, spoilers: the Lions did win. But I'd say equally big news was the Rams' offensive lineup is hiring random postal workers, which I don't
They
say. I don't say
they
to be
brought
funny.
somebody from the stands down there, and it was like, "Yo, do you fit these pads?"
I don't say that to be mean or funny because they started the game without right tackle Rob Havenstein. Uh, at some point, left tackle Joe Noteboom came out. And then at some point, I think early in the second half or late in the first half, left guard Steve Avila came out as well. Not great. Yeah, not great.
All while facing Aiden Hutchinson the whole time. Like
Yeah.
they put that man in a headlock. I think one of those plays where I was like, "Oh great!" Like we're legit doing the fucking Samoa Joe and shit, full chicken wing and shit.
For what it's worth, it could have been worse, I guess. It really could have been worse, like on
They
paper. But
they made that shit shake regardless, which was
yeah,
shocking to watch.
yeah. And then on the at the bottom half of the league, this one is kind of concerning, even if you're not concerned about these teams at the bottom half. In Carolina for the Panthers, Derek Brown has a meniscus injury, and the timetable for his return will be determined after surgery. I have not updated myself. That timetable may have been updated today at some point. But with the meniscus injury, he could be out for the season. So that Panthers defense suffers a huge blow, even for at least the next, I'd say, 5 to 6 weeks. But yeah, that's all the major news we got from week one, which was really exciting, really entertaining, I think. I don't want to dwell too much on it because I want to get to the the meat on the bones for our episode this week, which is it's week one. We did do Power Hour, which we ranked all the teams in the NFL, but we're gonna throw not all of it, some of it out the window because we're gonna do what simply I'm calling week one overreactions, which is these are kind of hot takes, kind of not. These are kind of throwaways. Some of them we believe in, some of them maybe they are just throwaways, but Yeah, I'm excited. I'm assuming you're ready to get negative. I don't know
I've
what to
got a
talk. I
few.
say I don't even like. I knew
I've
that.
got
Like,
a
why
few.
did I even ask? Why
I,
did I
I
even ask?
I just want to say that it is official. Derek Brown's out for the season.
Season. Oh God.
Yeah, so that
We've been
is.
very mean to Carolina, and like I do want to say like I'm
I
sorry for you guys. Like that's
I will
oh
not be stopping there. My first overreaction is Bryce Young already worse than last year? I mean, I didn't think it could get worse, but like considering they invested in things to get him like more comfortable behind that line of scrimmage, and I think, oh gosh, I wish I had a stat line in front of me, but I think he went like 13 for 30 or something like that, and I was like, how is this guy even worse than last year against a team that, like, again, we both agreed is largely like unremarkable. They like, I don't know, they had Derek Carr like legit shit talking. And I was like, Derek Carr hasn't been that excited in like 6 years. Like like I've never seen him that amped on the football field. And I'm just looking at him, I'm like, man, like this guy, he just doesn't like Lord Lord knows I did not watch that game live because I think I was watching I was watching the Texans Colts.
I just want to
Either
point
that or
out
was the anyway, they're
I
bad. And it's like it's even worse than I imagined.
I'm the optimist in this pair, but I just want to point out, like, make of this information what you will. It's burned into my mind for some reason. There is a play during that game. I don't remember what quarter this is. There is a play in that game where the Saints line up Alvin Kamara on the outside, and you want to know who's in the backfield? Taysom Hill is in the backfield. What was going on in that game? Like, if someone would like to like send us a message or even like call me up and explain it to me, I would love to know because what was going on in that game? Like
Bro,
I looked at
we got to stack the box. I have no idea if Taysom Hill's going to run off for 20 or not.
like I assumed maybe like Rashid Shaheed like went off for like 200 yards. Like that makes sense if they just like were bombed it, but like no, they were just like the Saints were chipping away at them. Normally, I'm like, what was going on in that game?
And in
But
fairness, like he wasn't like bombing away, but
that's what I mean. Like, I think that would make more sense.
he did get like a quite a bit of attention on the yardage front. Like he got, you usually expect that out of Olave. Once again, Olave was pretty much out of the picture, and it was pretty, it was just everywhere else.
Like yeah, like all jokes aside and not being hyperbolic, yeah, we were both like mildly optimistic about the Panthers, just that maybe they won't be the absolute worst team in the league. But yeah, I don't know. Like
I wanted to give it to the Giants, especially after I'd saw everything that happened. But then I looked at I looked at everything that Bryce Young did that game, and I just kind of felt sad. I was like, and hopefully this sort of removes this sort of insane idea last year that they were like, oh man, if CJ Stroud was on the Panthers, blah 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 blah, and I was like, no, this is a vastly huge difference. This is a huge difference between this guy who's legit scared to make a play and does not want to feel pressure at all versus somebody who at least will sling the ball down and eat a sack every once in a while.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah, I'm. I don't know what else to say other than I'm really sorry if you're a Carolina Panthers fan because
that's all I've got on
it's
them
really
at
rough.
least.
Yeah,
So like at least we ripped the Band-Aid at least.
like I can't believe I'm saying this. I've never even thought this, but as a Chargers fan, I am on the receiving end of what I'm no like I don't think I'm biased in saying this. Is like I experienced the worst playoff game in like NFL history, like literally. And I still feel like I'm in a better position than Panthers. Like, yeah, God, just I'm so sorry. Um, um I feel bad. I feel like I'm adding on, but I wanted to start with this because I think this is like a more lukewarm take of mine. But we're gonna keep it in the NFC South, and I'm sorry to dunk on Carolina. I'm not really dunking. I mean, they're not going to be competitive anyway. But the Buccaneers are probably going to win the NFC South again. Yeah, like I almost okay. I'll say I almost thought about making this. Falcons won't make the playoffs, which I don't think is out of the question.
Shit.
I think it is a factor in this take, but again, it is the NFC. The NFC is really weird. Like it's more like NFC is. I don't know how else to put it. AFC is just more competitive. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
But so I almost wanted to go that far, but I didn't. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. Like, granted, it was their week one game was against another one of those like week one games, but it's I think week one tax goes both ways. Like, yeah, the Commanders, we weren't expecting them to be competitive, but week one is always weird because you get like these teams who were like, even if there's continuity, it's week one and it's the first game of like live action, and you don't know what they're working on the off season really, so they could be changing things. But yeah, I feel pretty. I watched the highlights for this, and I think it's as simple as another year of Baker with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Like, I think they'll be even better. I think the depth got even better. I think that's a big point for this team, which is that Rachaad White was not good last year. In the first half of last season, he was not very good. I never really delved into that. I don't know if it was a run blocking thing, but
I don't know when the last time they had like an eye popping rush game anyway.
yeah, because when Brady was there, it was just like Leonard Fournette was like a competent running back, you know what I mean? But it's kind of like a I hate to invoke him. It's kind of like a Mahomes Pacheco thing, where it's like you just need a guy who's not a negative. You need a guy who's like, or even if he is a negative, like I'm not like whatever like the advanced stats are like negative 0.01 EPA. If he's just like neutral, or ultimately that is better than having like Clyde Edwards-Helaire or like in Rachaad White's case, like he was fine and like they did some good stuff with like screens and like short pass. But their depth got better. Bucky Irving, I think he rushed for like 60 plus yards, averaging like about 4+ yards a carry. And then Jalen McMillan, who I really liked as a third round pick, he scored his first touchdown on I think his first catch. But I think the only thing with the Buccaneers is you have to see how this secondary plays versus a better team. Obviously, traded away Carlton Davis. They held on to Antoine Winfield, which you can't keep both. You got one.
I think he just got hurt. Was the other thing.
Winfield.
Yeah.
So, I guess adding Winfield on to my last point about the Bucs was a situation of honor. As Kalijah Kancey did not play in Week 1, he has calf injury. He's also considered week to week. He's not on IR. I think the Bucs. I trust this offense enough, as I'm going to put it, and it's just can this defense take not a huge step, but can they be like they just need to be like league average? And again, like I don't want to be backhanded here, but they have the luxury, like quotes, luxury of playing in the NFC South. So
what I'm gathering here is that he's out at least 2 weeks with a sprained ankle issue.
okay, so something to monitor for the Bucs, at least their defense. But Falcons fans, I said the words, but I did not declare them. If we're being semantic here.
Yeah.
All right. What do you got what's your next take?
Second hottest one. I'm gonna save the one that I'm like flipping about for last.
Okay.
I think Zac Taylor will be fired before the year's over.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I would. Can we just double team here then? Because I had a take that I don't think the Bengals will make the playoffs. Yeah, like honestly, I'm sorry.
Initially, I was gonna get even bolder, but I didn't like feel that in my heart all the way. Initially, I wrote down the Bengals might be last in their division. I didn't.
Wow.
I didn't feel.
Wow.
Wow. I didn't feel that strong about it at first.
I want to frame this at least.
It's out of the picture though.
I wouldn't go that far, but I understand your. I think my framing is more last year. Almost every AFC North team made the playoffs, but I think this year is just those three teams are going to come back down to earth, and the Ravens are. Like I think there's genuine concerns about the Ravens too, but I think the Ravens are just so clearly better than the other three teams. Like their floor is just clearly so much higher. Like the worst Ravens season. The absolute worst Ravens season this year is 10 or 11 wins still. And
Yeah.
the other three teams, like, like it's kind of up in the air. I really don't know how, like, what the, like, they, like, yeah.
I was just looking at that Bengals, and sure, you can be like, oh, well, they didn't have Higgins. Chase might be unhappy, so he's playing a
Yeah.
little sluggish. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm just looking at it. I'm just like, what's the fucking like? How are they not only so expensive? Like they've got so much talent, but they're so expensive, and nobody looks like they give a shit out there. To be honest, which is crazy to say about AFC North division, which
Right.
thrives on ultra fucking uh, ultra competition basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I just looked at it and I was like, we're sluggish against a Patriots team that say what you will. I'm more positive on them than other people. But like for what it's worth, like they're still not supposed to beat a team
It's
that's
still
supposed
a
to
game
have
they should win. Yes, absolutely.
right.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
you should still have Joe Burrow, and now I'm looking at it, I'm like, why don't I feel good about the fact that they got Joe Burrow?
I'm not sure how I feel about this, and I don't want to declare this, but I think the vibes are so bad that we're asking ourselves, is Joe Burrow really like that guy? Like he's very clearly objectively one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league, but I think it's fair to ask the question of him, but also that maybe this team just isn't as
You
good
said
as we thought it was, which is
you,
like, that's how I feel. That is my feeling. This
you
team
said
is
he's
not
not
very good.
beat you said he's not beating the Carson Palmer allegations.
I mean, hey man, if he gets injured again, then
I,
this is real. Like, if I speak, I am in big trouble.
it's rough, right? Because like he's definitely the most talented quarterback that the Bengals have ever had, and in theory, he should be better than like he should be what like if you're putting him up with the Josh Allens and the Lamar Jackson types, he should be one of those guys that like lead you to the promised land. But I just it sucks that you go to the Super Bowl and you still only feel like moderately better
Yeah.
than like Justin Herbert.
Um, I feel like we've been talking mostly about the vibes, but I I think for a more pointed criticism, like, really, this is really how I feel. I think this team needs to be like a top five offense if they even want to at least make the playoffs,
Mm-hmm.
and I just don't trust them enough to make that happen. And flip side of the coin, their defense isn't great either. I did bring up when we talked about them in preseason, like, I think Geno Stone on paper was a good signing. Granted, I
Yeah,
didn't pay a lot of attention to their defense when I saw like clips,
yeah,
but this was a story last year that really no people talked about, at least especially like in like mainstream media. But their pass rush was not great because they've relied a lot on Trey Hendrickson, who I think has been great, but I think in the NFL, we're seeing that you can't just rely on the one pass rusher. You really need that front four, that box to
mm.
be strong. Sam Hubbard was not very good last year. And
yeah. I
then,
mean, to be honest, I didn't even like speak much about like the actual plays of it all because we both kind of expected the Bengals to be kind of iffy on defense. So the
yeah,
big reason that you were banking on them so much throughout the season as a viewer is like, okay, like Joe Burrow's back. This is supposed to be one of the elite offenses. I mean, you have Jamar Chase and T Higgins. Why aren't you like getting that sort of fire that you want out of them? And instead, you've got guys like the Patriots who are so undermanned on the talent front, but they just won it more than the Bengals.
just like to point out in our power hour, I did point out that, again, I would like to reiterate, I do not think Jake Browning is a starting quality quarterback. However, when the Bengals had their backs against the wall and they needed to scheme a more diverse offense with Jake Browning, they did that. Why do they not just do that with Joe Burrow?
Oh, he's good enough. He'll make it work. Zach, if Zach Taylor gets fired by the end of this year, I would
It's
not
going to
be
be his own
surprised.
fault. Look, I don't want to spoil anything, but I think Zac Taylor is clearly very smart, and because he trusts his quarterback so much, which I understand. Like again, I think Joe Burrow is objectively one of the best quarterbacks in the league. However, I think Zac Taylor is too smart to be shoehorning himself and turning voluntarily, I might add, turning himself into Nathaniel Hackett or Adam Gase. Like you clearly can scheme it. Just do it. That's
I
all.
mean, that's the crazy part because like once I like started paying more attention to football in general, I legit one of the first question that I had was, "What does Adam Gase do?" Like I was like, but they were like, "Oh well, he's didn't he come up underneath like the Peyton Manning?"
The Manning Broncos, yes, because
That
they set all those
doesn't
records.
that
They were
doesn't
just no,
mean
they were just
anything.
that good. Exactly, they were literally just that good.
So if anything, I think the more pointed like comparison is Zac Taylor to like Cliff Kingsbury,
Ooh, yeah,
which doesn't feel dishonest because this
yeah.
team does feel a lot like the Kyler Murray Cardinals with Kingsbury, where it's like, oh, we've got all the talent, but
Are
like
you
we're
like
only going to
projecting
chuck like
already, like how we like there was a Kyler hate period, which admittedly I was a part of at one point,
we're
but
gonna
we're
have a
like,
Burrow
but it was
period.
like a Kyler second half of the season when it came back, and we're just projecting this season out like a oh wait no you are a good quarterback and you can figure it out with good coaching. This is like this will work. Is that what you're
Yeah,
projecting? Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
he's always been good. I
Yeah,
think
that's what I mean.
he,
Yeah.
most and my grandma's Arizona Cardinals fan, so I'll like
I'm
listen
so
to her
sorry to
talk.
hear that.
I'll listen to her talk about it, and I'm just like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like they start worrying about like his attitude problems and all that, and I'm just like, none of this really translate on the field more so than this
Hmm.
scheming just kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And like again, nobody wants to play for a guy like Kingsbury, or it seems like nobody wants to fucking play for Zac Taylor. Like at least that's how it comes across. Like those are like little things that I notice before I even get into like the actual like nuts and bolts of the football stuff. It's like, does this team look like they give a shit about protecting Joe Burrow from
Oh,
a
hmm.
rusher? Like, does this team look like they give a shit if you know, I don't know. I don't even remember who their wide receiver one is, the Patriots. But do they care if they get fucking smoked by, one of these nameless Patriots quarterbacks? It doesn't seem like
One
it.
of their various WR3s.
Exactly. Like it doesn't seem like they give a shit.
I do want to move on from the Bengals, but the silver lining I will point out, a weird silver lining is that a lot of their rookies or their draft picks this year were hurt in week one. Amarius Mims did not play; he's week to week with a thumb injury. So, granted, I'm not sure how much, like just the present, well, regardless of what side he's on, how much that'll fix this offensive line. It's really,
Yeah.
like you said, it could just be a vibes thing. But then on the defensive side, they did draft two defensive tackles. I did forget this. I did remember they drafted Chris Jenkins in the second round. He was out
From
week one. And then their fourth round pick, McKinley Jackson from Texas A&M, he's on IR. So Jenkins
fit,
could come back for week two, but yeah,
fittingly a good comp for them in terms of like injury versus like effort sort of thing is the Rams. Get banged
yeah,
up like
it's
getting
valid.
banged up like hell, and they're like, oh well, the third tackle on the bench wants to come in and immediately make an impact type of deal. There's just a difference.
Okay, moving on for the Bengals. I don't think this is huge or very very spicy, but I don't I don't mean to straw man here, but it feels like a lot of people are real negative on these teams. So I'm kind of giving myself a cop out, but I think at least one of the Cardinals or the Chargers will make the playoffs this year. I think. Like
I
week
mean,
one was enough. I know. Well, like anybody who listens to a power knows that Caleb is high on the Cardinals. I think it's more just like
I was honestly
hmm,
higher on the Chargers too. I just don't like. I feel like Justin Herbert's going to get a lot of slack for not being like the guy when he's over here chucking 140 yards, and then most of your offense is coming from like fucking J.K. Dobbins. That's just the nature of the team. Frankly, like if Justin Herbert went down, I think that team mostly operates the same. You can because that's just how
You,
they're. That's just how the
I
team.
hear you. I hear you.
But
I,
I could see them making it, like especially within that division. I think because I'm higher on the Raiders, I still have them sliding a bit out. But um, yeah, I mean, I could definitely see it. Well-oiled machine, a lot of young guys, a lot of fresh legs for a team that seemed really sluggish last year.
yeah, I will say this take is as much a team we thought would be good not being good,
Mhm.
or both of and one or both of these teams being better than we expected. Which is, if anybody didn't watch the game, the Cardinals did lose to the Buffalo Bills, but they were pretty scrappy. They led by 2 possessions at some point in the first half, but after the halftime, the Bills, I don't know how else to say other than I'd say they woke up or they kind of just got their shit together. Josh
Yeah,
Allen had to Superman a little bit, but the defense hunkered down. I think they only scored 1 touchdown, the Cardinals, I mean, in that second half.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think this Cardinals team is it could be better, but it will. I don't see anything that will change in terms of this offense. I think the surprise with the Cardinals was Marvin Harrison Jr. didn't do anything, which is
yeah. Well,
week
they didn't.
one
They didn't
as
really target him either. Was the other thing. Like he only got 4 targets in total, and he only caught one of them for like 4 yards. The rest of it, they were giving the ball elsewhere. So I just wonder how they try and implement him into the offense there.
I know he faced double teams, not the whole game, but like a fair amount for especially for a rookie quarterback. That is really hard. Like I don't care like outside of Randy Moss, like a rookie quarterback having to like transition to the physicality of the NFL, like just it's
Yeah,
so hard. And like we
the
all like
a
people consensus
receiver,
believe.
yeah, a receiver immediately getting doubled out the gate, which it's not great, but I don't know. It definitely I think it says a lot more about the Bills than maybe I probably it wanted to admit. I don't love that they had to go full Superman with Josh Allen either. Again, that says a lot to what I was worried about, that you got to go Superman on a team that is, maybe
I'd like
6 wins.
I
I don't know.
understand that point, but part of me like I don't think this is just me being optimistic, but like if I could build on this specific point and semi sidebar, like I think if I could add the Lions here and how they won against a very scrappy but still again injured Rams team, I think the best teams in the NFL now, they can't just blow you away all the time and they need to know how to win these kinds of games like that. And whether it takes a collective team effort or your stars supermaning, I think that's just how it is. Like, look at the Chiefs last year. Like, I will always bring them up because, fortunately, they're in my division. Like, I don't know. We all saw it. A lot of people assume, like, oh, this will be the year Patrick Mahomes doesn't even win a game in the playoffs. He won with what we're assuming, and I think it's fair to assume will be the worst offense he has had in his career and maybe will ever have in his career. And so it's like, I think you need to be able to rely on guys both your stars and just generally your team. It's like building on what you always bring up. It's like good vibes in your team. Like yeah, the Lions I think are the best example of vibes in that regard. Like, look, man, it's not going to be pretty. We need to be able to fight these guys, and they did that. And
Yeah,
also the Bills, yeah, they did that. We were talking about the Cardinals. I do want to be a homer a little bit, but also go back to my original point, which is Chargers looked really good in week one, which is the first time like I have felt that way in at least an entire calendar year.
did it not feel like, because I watched some of the Chargers last year, and when I was
Yeah.
watching them, it didn't feel like they really had like a tangible sort of system going on. Where
No,
with this,
that's
where with this Harbaugh unit, it's like okay, like they have an identity. Even if I don't love the fact that they're essentially making Herbert like a system quarterback, at least it's something tangible where it's like this is the direction we're going to go towards, and this is like what the offense is going to look like. And I think that says a lot for them. Whereas last year, like even when they had all that talent, they didn't really have like an identity. They were just like Herbert go make a play type of deal.
for the 5 people, I guess 5 including you, people who will listen to me talk about the Chargers. Um, it's driven me nuts because the whole time under Brandon Staley, the Chargers kind of like I think the Chargers became the team that random people in the NFL, media or fans, casual or otherwise, would just be like, if you had to pick a random team you don't actually watch to be like, oh, they might actually be pretty good. It became the Chargers. And like, even going back to the 2 seasons ago when we lost to the Jaguars in the playoffs, I did not think that team was very good either. But the defense, I remember that season very vividly outside of the playoff game too, because the last like 6 games of the season, the defense allowed only an average of something like 17 points, which was, I think it was weak schedule, but like I think at some point we faced the Titans, and that's when the Chargers had a historically bad run defense. Like I think that season we had the literal worst run defense in recorded NFL history, which is like 20 plus seasons. But I say all that to say, under Brandon Staley, this team was probably, I was gonna say the least physical team in the league, which I think is correct. But honestly, this team was mad pussy. Like that's like the only way I could put it, man. I'm sorry. Like this the team just could not win if they were not blowing guys away. And so I think with Jim Harbaugh is really like, I don't know how else to say it other than I'm watching a real football team. Like they are so much more physical and they're prepared to grind games out. Like I don't did you didn't watch the whole game, did you? Because it was a real
No.
roller coaster for me. The first half, the Chargers were terrible. They had combined like 12 rushing yards, and that was on like 8 or 9 carries from Dobbins and Edwards. There was like they punted on like 4 of their first 5 possessions. I think 3 of them were 3-and-outs. Yeah, after halftime, they really got their shit together, and run game looked a lot better. Uh, I'd like to add too. They had 5 penalties in that first half. 4 of them were for false starts, all on the offensive line. But then, yeah, after halftime, they got it together, and so I think the Chargers are like. It's funny, like to say this as a fan of the Chargers, but I am understanding the very few media people who were so high on them just because of Jim Harbaugh. Because I'm like, yeah, I just one of those you don't believe it until you'll see it. And it's like seeing it in my own backyard. It's like yeah, shit, dude.
Yeah. Again, it's really just like a like what do you like bring to the what do you bring to the field type of deal. Like what, and that was the big issue that I had with a lot of those Staley games that I did catch when I was just like I don't really know like what they do.
Dude,
Like
yes. No, yeah, exactly.
it's just like I don't know. Who feels like that is like the Saints, where it's just like I don't really know what their identity is. It's like a collection of guys that that should be great. Like you're looking at Khalil Mack, you're looking at Bosa, and you're like, wow, that should be like an amazing defense. And then you watch it, and you're just like, this doesn't have like structure.
Well, I'd say I do want to move on from the Chargers, which is crazy for me to say. But I, the second biggest problem with the Chargers under Brandon Staley, the first being they just were not physical at all, which is it's true. They did not have an identity because the identity, which sounds smart, which is Brandon Staley's whole thing when he was coaching the Chargers, was sounds smart, is not actually smart in execution at all. Is win the turnover battle. And so on offense, it's don't turn the ball over. And on second, it's generate turnovers. But on offense, there was no identity. It was just Justin Herbert is he. I think there is stuff to be said. I will say I don't want to be a complete homer, and it's like I understand when people say they don't believe Justin Herbert is a top whatever quarterback in the league because, like, yeah, I get it because his whole thing is people think of him as a gunslinger. I'm like, I think he has an incredible arm, but he always takes the safe route. And so what we're going to see under Harbaugh is like, will they bomb it? It's like, or if it's like, I think the smarter analysis would be like, run game opens up the pass, which is like very like boomer, but it's like, I think, yeah, we both agree that's how this team is probably going to play out. And then, yeah, on defense, it's just like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but the amount of times I had to watch a Brandon Staley defense play soft man coverage, and oh my god, no, I'm sorry, I just unlocked so much PTSD from the Week 1 game against the Dolphins. Why are you playing soft man coverage against the Dolphins? Oh my god, wow, unlocked memory.
I don't even have anything to add to that. That's just
like that's
that's common sense. But
I don't know.
that
I had
shit,
to, I had to watch Mike Davis. Oh,
that's just how they like operated. It's so weird. It's just like,
ugh.
again, oh, y'all are talented, y'all got it. Like that's how it seemed to somebody who only
Yeah.
casually watched the Chargers. I was just like, is this like the only way that y'all play defense? Like, I don't know. You see, when I look at good defense, you see them, sort of, maneuver accordingly. Like the Lions were able to do that a few points during the Rams game, where it was like, okay, like, the secondary is gonna do a lot of the holding when Matt Stafford gets a little hot, and then once like the O line, erupts, then the secondary can play a little, softer, and then Hutchinson can pressure accordingly. With the Chargers, it was just like, oh, y'all are all supposed to do y'all thing, y'all got it. And I was just like, that's not how a football team registers.
Hmm. I do want to move on from the Chargers, but God, I feel like I had one more point to add on, but I forgot because I was too busy reliving my literal Week 1 PTSD. God, hire Brandon Staley, fire him again. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say. Caleb, please say something else before I say it again. I will say it even louder.
The last overreaction that I have, and this one I didn't feel as great about, but I did have a stat that I could pull up. God damn it, it reloaded. Anyway, I'm going to be talking about Anthony Richardson here.
Ooh, I'm scared.
Anthony Richardson had a 60-yard pass, a 57-yard pass, a 54-yard pass. Outside of those three passes, he was 6 for 16 with 41 yards and a pick. So, with that information within us,
can I say it?
Go ahead.
Anthony Richardson is like the most awesome quarterback ever. He's honest. He's so bad, but he's also so incredible. Like
he's like
when people who are smarter than us, I do mean that, say like, oh, this guy's so raw, and it's really hard to see because sometimes like you see it and sometimes you don't, and sometimes like you don't know if it's just like the rest of the team, like the unit he's in, especially on defense. So you're just like, yeah, okay. Anthony Richardson is like
it feels like those times where like you see like Curry do like a pull up half quarter, like,
but he's doing it all the time.
And then it does right, like that's how it feels all the time. And then it's like, oh, now I'm going like 4 for 13 type of
Anthony
thing.
Richardson is the first and one mixtape player for football.
That's so
right.
With that, unfortunately,
shout out Ray for Austin. Let's go. Let's go.
Given the fact that I should want to see him on the field be NFL's version of hot sauce, my overreaction is that maybe they should sit him for another year and Joe Flacco should come in and play. Because I watched that tech. That was the one that I focused on this week. It was in my region. The Texans Colts game was fantastic. But I'm looking at this situation unfold, and I'm just like, dude, Anthony Richardson is awesome. I wish he didn't suck sometimes. Like, the ideal version of me, like,
has this ever happened in NFL history? Have they ever started a rookie quarterback and then said, bro, Jesus Christ, like, sit down? like, but not like in a we don't believe in you kind of way, but in a
right, it's like,
no, like
you're tripping
like pump the brakes. Yeah.
Like
has this ever happened?
The thing is like, I love that about him because you can't teach that into somebody. You can't teach them to be as ballsy as he is.
Yeah.
But on another front, it's like, this team is good, and I don't know if they need to be playing somebody who wants to play so goddamn haphazardly all the time. I think they should like at least consider at some point being like, Joe Flacco's probably going to get us to the playoffs.
No, you know what they need to do? They need to go full like, I don't know what TV show I'd evoke. They need to go full like HBO TV show and fake an injury or something. And then like obviously this wouldn't happen in real life. Actually, it's the NFL. This could happen. I was thinking in the TV show, someone discovers it's a fake injury, and then they need to go find that guy and snuff him out or something.
Adam Schefter is going to be found in a river. Ian Rappaport is over, bro. But no, it sucks because I shouldn't feel that way. But like, football is just not the kind of sport where you need to be throwing somebody. Like, again, these guys on defense are like sacrificing their bodies, and then you see this jackass throwing up a 70-yard prayer, and it works, and then they get excited, and then it doesn't work like 4 more times, and then they're just like, I don't know.
Before I forget, I do want to point out this funny tweet I saw, which is someone said, "Man, times have changed, huh? Got black quarterbacks throwing to white wide receivers."
That's gross, by the way. White or wide receivers need to stop it. And I'm talking to somebody who has Ladd McConkey on their team. Like, when I saw that name alone, I was like, that's a bust. Sorry. It's Ladd McConkey. Mind you, he'll probably be fine, but still. Like, it's the principle.
I don't know how good MacBook cameras are. I want to see if I can pull up one of my favorite football memes. It's got to be mirrored, obviously, but
bro, they like Loki. They fall for that shit. That's what's buggy. The other two, just briefly, I won't go too in depth on them because they're just like practically one sentence on the hot take. One of them was Mark Andrews, welcome to Subaru Baltimore. And the other one is Deshaun Watson is the worst quarterback in the NFL.
That's not even a take. That's just an observation.
Yeah. But
that's literally just an observation.
It just feels like object fact at this rate.
Yeah, like, I guess we could sidebar with the Browns before I get to my last take, which is, the Browns are just, they made their bed and now they have to lay in it, which is, I don't want to talk about them too much because I really don't want to talk about the news that popped over the weekend.
Yeah, I was going to say, or they don't.
I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of it, but people listening can look this up, but there's a potential secondary lawsuit being filed against Deshaun Watson, and there is precedent for the league to look into suspending him again, and because it is not his first suspension, or because it is a repeat offense, this is like, I forget what this policy is called, but it's behavior. I think it's like behavioral policy. There are grounds for the NFL to
waive his salary.
Potentially waive his salary. I don't want to get too much into it, truthfully. But sticking to football, Deshaun Watson is bad. Like, honestly, he's really bad. It is like Joe Flacco. If Joe Flacco had not thrown that pick six in the playoffs, I think he starts this season, honestly. Like,
I still think he should have.
I mean, yes, I think both of us, we think he should have, but just like, I think that was enough for the optics to not be totally awful. But speaking of teams with washed up old quarterbacks.
Real quick, I just want to say 40-year-old Flacco is equivalent to like 3-and-D Vince Carter at 41.
Yeah.
That's what that feels like. Where it's like this is a great like seventh man. Like, I don't need him to be dynamic.
Yeah.
Myles Garrett is, the first guy on that unit.
It's kind of like casuals. Well, like, I mean, not sincerely. Casuals are probably like, oh, that's cool. He's probably a little washed up, but he's ending his career on like a lower league team. I'm like, no, like, if you watch it, he's actually still really good, and it's kind of crazy. But that's a good call. I like that. Shout out 3-and-D Vince Carter. How many teams did he play for? He did like the Jamal Crawford thing to end his career. He played for like a different team every year, didn't he?
Yeah, the Hawks, the Kings, the Magic. Oh God!
I'm missing at least one more.
Nets, the Raptors. Was he on the Sun? I think he was on the Suns.
Yeah.
God, I wish I had it all from memory. But yeah, big time like Jamal Crawford, Isaiah Thomas vibes.
Shout out Vince Carter, man. Love of the game. Yes. Before wanted to sneak that in. Speaking of washed up old quarterbacks, so not to be facetious. My last overreaction from NFL Week 1. I I do not think the New York Jets will make the playoffs. I'm sorry, my hater hat is on, but I will admit that my hater hat is on, but I just feel it in my heart of hearts that they will finish third in this division, and that will not be enough to make the playoffs this year.
They were still like pretty. Again, this mostly seemed like an offensive line issue, and again, I feel like we aren't being
Yes.
nice
If we're
enough.
referring to Monday Night
Niners.
Football, yes. The Packers did, not the Packers, the Niners did smush them, essentially.
They just like the Niners look just as good as last year. I don't. I feel like because we've seen the same playbook, happen with them where they get smushed by a much better, quarterback and coach tandem. You naturally want to be like, oh, well, are they really that good? But at the end of the day, like they're still good against all the other 30 teams in the league. Like I don't know. I'm looking at them and I'm just like, they're still strong. This like they can reasonably beat any other team that's not top five in the league.
I will
Like again,
say, hmm,
real Rockets type vibes where it's just like, all right, like Mike D'Antoni will probably get you those 60 games, but can he do it against Steph Curry?
oh, okay,
Probably
I
not.
see. I know this is your favorite metaphor to bring up because it is a good metaphor. The Harden D'Antoni Rockets. I mean, it is a good metaphor. But I'm going bad vibes argument here. Not entirely bad vibes, but part of this too is like I've defended him too, but maybe Robert Saleh is just not a good head coach. Like he's very clearly one of the better defensive minds we have in the league. But honestly, man,
This is
like
also the
I
first
think
year he's had a quarterback.
the most concise way I can put this is they're getting what they paid for trading for an old Aaron Rodgers and hiring a bad OC. And I don't care if this is his Adam Gase. Like if you're smart, you still don't hire Adam Gase, is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
And this is not entirely on Rodgers. It's just like it's hard. Like at his age, what is he for? He's 40 flat, right?
Coming on, kind. I don't think he's that old, but
He's
he
39
is
or
he is
40.
coming off of an Achilles,
Off an Achilles injury, which is hard to
which
come
is
back from, it regardless of age in football. Like I do not think. Well, let me be clear. I don't think the Jets were in the wrong trading for him. Like I personally disagree, but I understood. I'm like, okay, like even with like the last season of Green Bay, I think most of us are assuming it was just like bad vibes, like really bad vibes. Like he didn't want to be there, he wanted out, and so like yeah, and then he got injured. So it's like I don't know. It was 2 years since we saw good Aaron Rodgers, but we were also saying like there were reasons why like again the bat like wanted out of Green Bay and then he got injured. But I don't know. I feel like the Jets and especially Robert Saleh have gotten the luxury, and I really mean this, the luxury of offloading a lot and almost all of their blame on Zach Wilson, who, to be clear, is not good. But we did see flashes, like literally flashes of good quarterbacking. But it's like, I don't know, man. I like really firmly believe, like, as much as like we talk shit about quarterbacks in the NFL, and like people say right now, there are not a lot of great quarterbacks in the league. I understand. Like, I honestly, I think that's true. But if we're like gonna stay here and point fingers and talk about like someone needs to be better. Like, why did people not talk about Robert Saleh? Because yeah, I get it. You had 3 years with Zach Wilson. We're just like, I don't know, man. This feels like an organizational thing, and it feels like we offload a lot of this on. We didn't have the quarterback. We have the quarterback now, and it's just like I don't know.
so.
It doesn't move the needle for me.
I
It doesn't
think
move the needle enough for me. That's it.
I think both things can be true. I think just institutionally, the whole thing with the Jets is they want to form like something that's ready. I mean, that's basically what you get Salah for is that he can basically get everything else ready. I just need a quarterback. Not everybody, can sort of. Not everybody's like McVay, where it's like, okay, like I'm able to
Yeah,
bring
but
this up from
again,
raw
that
resources. I
again,
think
that is my point, though.
it's. I mean, it's just a difference of personnel. Like I think this is the first year that Salah is going to be able to like coach a team with a quarterback who he like actually trusts behind the line rather than having to like build him up type of thing. Like it's the same way. Like I don't blame Tomlin for the fact that Kenny Pickett wasn't good.
Oh no, not at all. Yeah.
That it's sort of how it's sort of the same feeling that I get where it's
But
like,
you see what I mean? Like, even in his rookie season, there was enough rumbling that's very clear whether this is coming from the Steelers camp, from someone from like anti-Pickett like sentiment, but like there is enough like, I know this is a funny thing to say, but yeah, there was enough like media visibility that's like Kenny Pickett's job is not safe, but the 2-ish years of the Jets was like the Jets suck and it's Zach Wilson's fault. What are we doing about it? Nothing. That's
yeah,
what I mean.
they felt like they, and that's a separate issue that I agree with you on, where it's like they kind of felt beholden to this idea, but I don't know how much of this is really Saleh's fault more than this is like an organizational front office sort of issue, where it's like they've got like all the stuff that Saleh is going to want to succeed, but
I
they
guess
don't
yes.
have anybody that.
Let me clean it up a little and say like I'm pointing a big finger at Saleh because I think, but to your point, like I just mean like he is also part of this, but it's really just like this isn't as organized or as great as we were making it out to be. I think is my point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
I will
know.
say we're talking a lot of vibes this since I rattled this off. But I know they played the 49ers, but just fundamentally the Jets defense looked a little funky.
Sure,
Like
I mean,
fundamental like it's we brought up Hassan Reddick at the top of the episode, and it's very clear they're missing literally anybody who is at least an above average pass rusher.
outside because like again you've got Keenan Williams on the front
On
end
the
there.
inside, yeah.
So you just yeah, I mean I see it, but they're kind of like just solid all around. But when you get exploited on one end and you don't have the sort of edge rushers again, I put a lot of this on the 49ers who just looked fantastic. They were able to slot in Jordan Mason like he was fucking Christian McCaffrey, which blew me away. I was like, okay, this dude can run for 150 against, mind you, gosh, I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but the Jets pass rush last year was like upper tier last year.
They were one of
So
the
like,
top 10 pass rushes specifically. They were a
so
top 10
and they
defense, but pass rush they were. But that's what I mean. That's also an
they,
organizational thing.
they didn't really lose anything though. Is
Well,
what
no,
I'm getting at.
they
But
lost
instead
Bryce Huff.
mm-hmm.
They lost John Franklin Myers, and then which is the cherry on top was they lost Bryce Huff to the Eagles, who then were okay trading away Hassan Reddick, and just like that one, I feel like I should have started with that. That one feels like an organizational failure to me.
Yeah,
Like you cannot trade for a guy and not have a deal in place. Like I
yeah,
don't care who we're talking about. I don't care what organization you are. I don't care what sport we're talking about. You know what I mean? You
yeah.
cannot trade for a guy and not have a deal in place. That is like egregious. That's like 7 circles of hell type shit. Like you cannot be doing that.
Well, I don't like hate the fact that they lost. I don't hate the fact that they lost Huff and they gained Reddick. I think more than anything,
On paper, yes, of course.
I kind of agree with the idea of like not really, because I don't think Hassan Reddick is like that special enough to pay him like one of the premier edge guys that he views himself as, or his team views himself as. I definitely understand the reason, but at the very least, like my big issue is like, okay, extend him like you used to. You can easily move off of him because the Eagles move off of him so fucking easy. Really, it's the little things, but they've got the structure in place to be great. I think a lot of what I saw was just a lot of good fire from the 49ers, great rush game, even stronger offensive line. The big glaring hole was the fact that the Jets secondary looked kind of all right versus Brock Purdy on the passing end of things. Mostly because, again, usually when they were able to break past that line, they put a little pressure on Purdy to where he would overthrow real basic throws, or he'd he'd underthrow these very congested lanes for the receivers to pick up on. So
Purdy tax. Just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I think there's promise with the Jets. I think the 49ers was gonna be a pretty humbling experience, at least week one. I think the further we get into the season, the more concretely we'll see like what the Jets truly are and how they can sort of maneuver with the Rodgers offense and how that in turn impacts the the Jets defense.
Okay. Well, glad we could get all these off our chest. Yeah, we got something. If you have like a small one, even one more you want to rattle off, because I know you had a handful of them, right?
I had like six, and I listed off the last two. Mark Andrews, it might be over. Um, I guess the big one is
Oh, there was a big one.
yeah, and this one I was just thinking on tentatively. I don't think it's like a hot take or anything, but I think the Texans are the second best team in the league. And I probably should have felt that. I probably should have just said that from the onset in the like rankings that we did. Like had you mentioned that, I think you had like the 49ers versus the Ravens or something. But I was a little squeamish about the Texans. Like, oh well, I haven't seen it yet. It's only year two Stroud. Blah 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 blah. But that Texas team looks fucking fantastic. Like on every level of the field.
I only have this face because in this specific setting, this doesn't feel like a take. That's all I'm saying. Like
Yeah,
you saying that in this setting feels like going into a 2017 NBA Twitter thread and talking up Spencer Dinwiddie. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, of course, that's exactly where you do that. Duh. But yes, I hear
yeah.
you.
I didn't have anything strong other than the fact that when I watched that Texans Colts game, I was just like, the Texans are just like
Same thing, man. Vibes.
they're built for it, in a very vague sort of way, but like they're fucking built for it. Like when you watch a team like that, it's like, oh man, like somebody's gonna get the fucking head kicked in.
Like
I look at all their other games this year, and I'm just like, I see a scenario where they win all of them if it came to it.
I think
Obviously I think they're gonna lose like four or five, but
yeah,
there are scenarios where I was like, they could beat all these teams.
like I think with the Packers, I didn't get bullied into, but I got wrapped up in like hype from other people about how good the Packers could be, and they still could be that good. But I think now the injury to Jordan Love is kind of like a get out of jail free card for that take. But even that aside, I think the Texans, and for the purposes of ranking teams in the NFL, the Lions are just like the best built teams in the league. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
well, I think.
the
Hmm.
Packers. I do wonder how like a Malik Willis or even a Ryan Tannehill plays because, um, I think then you could sort of see if it's really a Jordan Love thing versus it being like a Matt LaFleur thing.
Jayden Reed is going to catch so many crossers the next 3 weeks. A disgusting amount of crossers.
It's gonna look like Bengals Jake Browning.
That
Same
play
thing.
action game, baby. That play action game. All right. Well, that was fun. Those that officially marks the end of that is all of our week one overreactions. Don't want to dwell too much on it. Um, I did want to. We do have two more sections, which we will make normal on these audio visual experiences. First one I want to go with is something I am lazily calling. If you have a better title for this, Caleb, too. Someone can let me know. But we're calling this four downs. This is just four shout outs we have for anybody, anything in the league. Could be an entire team, could be a unit, could be a player, could be a coach. That's it. Would you like to go first, or would you like me to go first?
I think I kind of did it first with the Texans again.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's them and the Chiefs. I can't wait to see them eventually face off. Those two are like pretty head and shoulders above the rest, and then I think the Lions are like very shortly behind the Texans.
It's funny. This is the first ever one weird slash I am doing. But I couldn't decide, so I had to do a cop out. And my first one is a tie, but it was between two young wide receivers, specifically between Jayden Reed and Jameson Williams, who I thought both were fan fucking tastic. Like
Yeah,
Jayden Reed really kept the Packers in that game. Like his speed. Like I don't think it was a touchdown, but there's a. I didn't know it was a touchdown. When he hits that deep crosser starting from the left in trio, I think they motion someone. Or no, it starts in a pair and they motion someone to trio, and he crosses to the right. Like, oh man, that's just good. That's just good route running, man. I love that. And then Jameson Williams, which I'm gonna cross my fingers and hope I'm not jinxing it, but we finally got a Jameson Williams game. Only took 2 seasons, but we finally got to see what it was like. I mean, I don't know how you feel, but man, I feel like it's funny. I'm not even a Lions fan, but I feel really good about this team. And like,
They're fantastic.
We brought it up before. Like, all they needed was some more dynamic offense, like in any way, shape, or form. The easiest way was vertical speed, and Williams brought that. So
You know what I want to similar in that line sort of range. I think what goes a little understated. I think Carlton Davis made a huge difference in that secondary.
yeah,
Especially for a
absolutely.
lot of young guys like Arnold, like Branch, like you know, what's his last name? I don't know how to, but another new defensive back they just drafted. All
Oh
those
yes,
guys. It could have gotten like real raw and ugly, where they get two balls and they want to go for these big, play type of situations.
no,
But
the
I think
same.
the thing that I noticed with Carlton Davis that didn't really like leap off the stat pages is, I'm just looking at him just makes like simple plays, like just
This
break up a catch. Don't go for the big play. Because especially against a guy like Matt Stafford, it takes discipline not to go for those big plays that he goes for. But he was just like, listen, like the simple play is the best play, and they kept it just simple, like tackle the guy. Don't do too much, otherwise we're going to get burned, and it's going to be a long day for all of us.
the same way. No, I like the way you thought about that because the same way the Chargers, with Jim Harbaugh becoming head coach, like they just became more physical and really they became more competent. Yeah, same thing happened to the Lions secondary. Like they were so bad last year, or honestly the past 2 years. They don't even need to be like a special unit. They need to be like bang average or even like slightly below average, and that is a market improvement on what the secondary has been. But like to your point, I agree. Like, yeah, I think Carlton Davis is like a perfect, like the perfect veteran presence. Like he's one of those guys in the league, like Stephon Gilmore 2 3 years ago. Like the way like he was like a perfect veteran you could slot into almost any scheme, but he's good enough to like handle like press man and also do like zone and handoff assignments if you need him to. Like yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and then you were talking about Terry and Arnold was the first round pick, but then they double dipped and picked Ennis Rakestraw in the second round.
Yep.
And yeah, Arnold went out for what? That was like 1 or 2 series, and then Rakestraw came in, and yeah, he looked just as good, like just as physical. Yeah,
They picked up Branch
yeah,
last
and then,
year, who got 3 pass deflections that game, a tackle for loss, 5 solo tackles. Like that was good stuff, man. And then also want to shout out Kirby Joseph on that
yeah, Kirby
line of
Joseph
thinking.
was really
Big
great.
pick, big pass deflection, and just it's the simple things, bro. When usually the plays will open up for themselves, the further you get into the game, and not biting so easily the way that young secondary did. It's just like, okay, like this is really all they needed was defense, and that's kind of what the 49ers exploited in that second half back in the NFC Championship. And it's those little tweaks that I think that'll get them the longest, especially as they look to get into the Super Bowl.
I realized I should have pointed out their stat lines too, but yeah, Jayden Reed finished with 4 catches, 138 yards, and 1 touchdown. And then Jameson Williams had 5 catches for 121 yards and 1 touchdown. And my favorite next gen stat that I got this week was 4 players broke 21 miles per hour, and Jameson Williams was one of them. He had 21:03. That's fast. That's fast.
And it's probably off of that huge pass.
It was. I did write it down. It was on one of those play action crossers, but like a play
Yep.
action deep cross to the hit on the left side. Yeah. Jared Goff and play action, man. Say what you want about Jared Goff, but you give that boy play action, he's slinging that shit, man. do you have do you have any more shout outs? Because I would like to go hard on my last shout out.
go hard on the last because it was basically the Texans, and then I had to look to get my stats on the second one, which was that Lions secondary. I wanted to give a huge shout out to, and should be a great year for him.
Right. It's funny because we've already elaborated on this quite well, but I wasn't planning on to elaborate that well earlier. But my second shout out is this beautiful white man who is masquerading as a televangelist. James Harbaugh, coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, man. I've seen the light. I have seen the light. I would just like to reiterate, like, people who forgot, or really, like, if you did not watch that game, like, seriously, it was the first half was like bad. Like, I thought like I was in hell for a second. First first half they averaged 3.6 yards per play. Like per play, there were 5 penalties, and like I said, there were four of them were false starts, and there were 12 combined rushing yards. But yeah, after halftime, those dudes, I don't know what was said in that locker room, or like
You want to
what.
know? You want to know how good Jim Harbaugh is? Uh, he's so good. They still believe that Colin Kaepernick can be a quarterback at like 40 years old. That's how good Jim Harbaugh was. Like Jim Harbaugh is so
Are we
good that
getting like
people still want to get Kaepernick a job.
we're getting
They
backhanded
want
positive slash like kind of negative here?
Jim.
Let's list it all. Jim Harbaugh is so good. We cared about Stanford football. Jim Harbaugh is so good that people still think Colin Kaepernick can play in the NFL.
Jim Harbaugh was so
Jim
good.
Harbaugh
Alex Smith had a full career
as a starter. That's what
as a
as a
starter.
as an undisputed starter.
And like continue to be a starter. He went to the Chiefs after that. He was like, yeah, I'm still good out here.
Jim
Proceeded to
Harbaugh.
still be that band. He's Kirk Cousins for real.
Jim Harbaugh is so good that teams were willing to trade up for JJ McCarthy.
And I think that was probably my biggest like slight on Jim Harbaugh. I was like, oh great, like this fucker's so good. He's got people biting on Michigan quarterbacks.
But yeah, I don't want to harp on it again, but not entirely. But yeah, like I've said, Chargers under Staley, just not enough physicality. Um, a specific shout out to the O line too.
I,
On paper, it's a talented O line, obviously with Slater and Alt on
I
bookending.
wanna mention for sure that the difference between the Raiders head coach and Staley is going to be like a massive clash of like vibes there, where it's like, oh yeah, we're going to work hard, and then Staley's like, do you got to? Like, really?
Oh my god, the Staley clip that's burned into my mind. Are we surprised by what happened? No.
Like that's just an insane clash of vibes just out the gate. Old boy wants to make sure that the team cares and shit, and there goes Staley over in the corner like, Gardner Minshew kind of high. And I hate to talk down on Gardner Minshew as somebody who watched the Colts a lot last year, who saw him be like a pretty solid starting quarterback for what it's worth. It's just you don't feel good about watching Gardner Minshew because it's just he's a spiritual backup.
We love bullying Gardner Minshew, but we also love Gardner Minshew. It's fine. It's okay to be the worst starting quarterback in the league because you're still a starting quarterback. I know that sounds horrible, but I mean, I don't know, man. It's either like you want to exchange him and Jacoby Brissett. It's like, okay, Brissett's the best backup, and someone's going to be the worst starter, right? We'll switch up? I don't know.
That's a good question because, like, I
don't want to talk about this today.
The Derek Carr to Gardner Minshew discrepancy is crazy.
But yeah, this is definitely like only Chargers fans have noticed this. Have you ever heard of Scott Matlock? He's been
that's a white guy, right? It's got to be.
It is, of course, it's a white guy. He's a ginger with curly hair. He's a big dude. He's like 297, I think. Last I checked.
Real.
But he has been a death piece for the Chargers D line. He plays tackle, I think, at least the past 2 years that I can remember. Harbaugh moved him to fullback, and let me tell you, man, they had this guy lining up at tight end, and
Wait,
something like
just
they're like, don't get me, he didn't. I don't think he caught a pass. I think he was targeted once, but like they're not like big motions, like not like sweeping motions, but like they had like those real like Greg Roman ass motions, like lines up at tight end, and then he lines up at fullback in the eye. I'm like, bro,
you fucked me up right there because you just said he moved from D tackle to fullback.
I forget what college Matlock went to, but he did play tight end. He was like a both sides of the ball kind of guy, but this was in
What the
college, so this
fuck?
never happened in the pros. So
And that,
I'm like,
I mean, that just sort of lets you know about the state of fullback play. Like, I still don't one play that stood out to me in that 49ers game. I was like, the 49ers are the only team to throw a streak to a fucking fullback.
like a streak, right?
Yeah, I was like, this is the only team that gives a shit enough to be like, we need a fullback and we need him to be a pass catcher too.
I mean, there's only 3 good fullbacks in the league right now, right?
Don't
It's
it?
you.
I thought there
No,
was
I
just one,
no.
but
It's,
you go, go on.
Kyle Juszczyk, obviously,
Yeah,
but then you have Pat Reichard in Baltimore, who's like he's literally just a blocking fullback.
I don't know who that is, but sorry.
And then I think if he's still in the Dolphins, Alec Ingold, because he used to be on the Niners when McDaniel was there, so that's why he moved over. Yeah, that's all I can name. I swear to God, the Vikings had a good full. I don't know. But yes, Jim Harbaugh and Greg Roman are football sickos. If you weren't aware of that, I would like to point out Christian Wilkins was dominant in that first. Like the flip side was Christian Wilkins was dominant in that first half, and then second half, yeah, line really got their shit together. Um, this line isn't athletic enough to do anything crazy like pull like any pulls with center or guard, but I
Yeah,
think they were really smart in how they distributed. Like they pulled off a lot of good double teams, even outside of like 12 personnel. I actually didn't check the numbers on if they like lined up a lot in that, but they the blocking was very smart. Is how I was going to put it. I don't want to extend myself too much and act like I'm a genius, but the blocking was very smart and it was very physical and it worked. And also, J.K. Dobbins had a healthy game, which leads me to believe Jim Harbaugh knows some kind of voodoo.
I'm sure you want to talk about Joe Alt.
I mean, I was so excited about just everything in general. It slipped my mind, but you're goddamn right. I didn't write it down, but of course I remembered off the top of my head that Joe Alt played 19 fucking pass blocking snaps against Max Crosby, and you know how many pressures were allowed? This many, baby, this many.
Fucking
Which
dog.
is all like
The
I'm gonna take a deep
NFL
breath and calm
game,
down and say bias aside, yeah, it was an awesome debut. Like that was as good of a
first N-
debut you
first
could have asked
NFL
for.
game, and they
Max
said, "Hey,
Crosby.
I need you to face Max
Max
Crosby." It's
Crosby,
like that's a
who,
bet.
as we've noted, is one of the most psychotic. I think Max Crosby, other than angry Miles Garrett, specifically angry, like normal Max Crosby, is like the most psychotic defensive player in the NFL. I think that's fair to say.
Right.
But yeah, man. Granted, I pointed this out to you. There were 2 plays where he was close to Herbert, but yeah, the way Alt like stands him up and he gets like his like head and shoulder up, Crosby's, I mean, like yeah,
That's good football
God,
right there. Especially like against somebody who people are predicting him to win Deep Boy this year.
yeah, exactly. Which is like it's still realistic, really. But yeah, shout out Jim Harbaugh. I might find religion again. Who knows, man? I do want to point out one more thing. I was going to bring up the run game, but that's like so like cut and dry. Like, but yeah, healthy J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards will be very good if they're healthy. But yeah, seriously, the Chargers know how to tackle. This is crazy to me. Like real
Yeah.
tackling, no bullshit. Which is I want to shout out Dan Campbell here too, which is kind of like I want to shout out Harbaugh and Dan Campbell, and then there's still some newer young guys like John Gannon in Arizona and Mike McDonald in Seattle, which is like
D'Amico Ryan.
I'm D'Amico Ryan's like I'm using this. I would like to dunk on Brandon Staley one more time, which is just like Brandon Staley is a smart defensive guy. but that's enough evidence for me to say he's not a head coach, because being a head coach is, you can't just talk it, you got to walk it. You can't just have the ideas, you got to execute them. Like as simple as I can put it, you got to crawl before you can walk, and the guy just couldn't get this team to crawl.
I'm gonna be real. As somebody who caught only glimpses, I'm gonna watch the Raiders more in depth next week, so I'll be able to report back with some hate. Um, but are we sure that Staley is good at anything?
I'm trying to be nice because I'm going to end by again saying we need to hire Brandon
Brandon
Staley
Staley.
again and fire his ass again. Do it again.
I might bring this back next week. I might bring that back next week.
I need it so bad.
Especially because Antonio Pierce is like
I know you were really high on Pierce, which like I understood, but I brought up like my argument with the Raiders is just bad vibes, and
the Raiders.
I think it's setting in earlier than I thought it would.
Well, I mean, again, you said yourself that Wilkins did good, and Crosby, as much as he ran into a wall like Joel, like again, you're gonna have that defense that's gonna fight hard for him. The big thing is just like again, I don't know. Antonio Pierce on the defensive side of the ball doesn't worry me. I don't know who their offensive coordinator is, so that I guess maybe that should be part of my trepidation with rating the Raiders.
I will say with Pierce, I will say I guess we're sidebarring with the Raiders, but just because I want to point this out, like it's not. I don't mean to dunk on the Raiders, but like I agree. I think Pierce has good vibes, but he did one thing which I thought was an egregious sin, which is in the, I think, late third quarter. They punted on 4th and 1 on the Chargers 43, and I legitimately said, like, I think my girlfriend was asleep, and I was just watching the game on my phone. I literally audibly said, "What the fuck? Why would you? Who punts on your opponent's 40? It's 2024."
You know what?
What is this? The 1800s? Like, come on, dude. Do you want to? No, I remember this. I don't remember the year. Do you want to remember the last coach who did that? Who punted on 4th and 1 in their opponent's territory? Rex Ryan. With the Bills. Rex Ryan.
Antonio Pierce does feel like a Rex Ryan a guy spirit. Like especially like it's his first year. He's like, listen, if I fuck up and I like turn this ball over here, like he doesn't want to get the heat of it. I think that's real novice coaching stuff that I think comes with just beginners type of thing. But I do admit that does sound like some Rex Ryan ass shit to do.
This is maybe this is two things. Maybe Antonio Pierce is like Rex Ryan, and that's like I don't hate Rex Ryan. It's like Rex Ryan is definitely like vibes, and when it's bad, it's like you're not coaching your way out of the shit, buddy.
Yeah.
And then number 2 is the meme you already brought up. I forgot who we were talking about, but it was the I just became important at work and it's ruining my life.
That's funny because he legit did that over fucking McDaniels. Yeah, he did that shit with Josh McDaniels and the Raiders, and then they were like, the players seem to like this guy, let's hire him. And then was like,
I totally forgot that, which is funny to say because I should really dunk on the Raiders more for that. But I forgot just how bad McDaniels was. But like honestly, like hey, it's plausible that McDaniels was so bad that you go to Pierce, and it's like, well,
I watched that shit, and I was like, apparently this is the only dude that they respected in that like front office.
Yeah, I mean, it's
something that the GM and the owner even noticed. They were like,
why it's
nobody
funny.
gives a fuck about McDaniels.
I will say, as much as I am trashing this Raiders Pierce hire, which again I really like Pierce on like a interpersonal level, but it's funny how transparent that was. Like Max Crosby was just like, we're riding with Antonio Pierce. And it was like, oh damn, like okay, like shit. Like
like those dudes like even on the offensive side of the ball, it's just again, Gardner Minshew's gonna throw a death ball to Devontae, and then their offense is gonna be a little funky. But I think I don't know, they find that right offensive coordinator. I think everything else kind of falls into place.
Before we move on, the last thing I want to bring up on the Raiders, they do not have a great schedule. If you would like to hear this, the Raiders away at Baltimore, versus Carolina versus the Browns, away to Denver, host Pittsburgh, away to the Rams, host the Chiefs.
Ooh.
So it's very plausible that the Raiders go 1-7. Like, it's fairly realistic. It's
So you
fairly.
said they definitely win that Panthers game. I hope they win.
I will add a caveat. Like, they really should win that game. But if they lose that game, like assuming they don't beat the Ravens, and then they
That's
also
hot.
lose
That's an immediate hot seat.
that's
That's an
immediate hot seat.
immediate hot seat.
That's like what do you? That's if you start that season 0-3, because especially losing to the Panthers specifically, I feel like your options really, as the Raiders are, like it's not necessarily there, but it's like Pierce hot seat, or we need to find that Devontae package like now.
Now.
Yeah. So that at least we have a justification when we go 0-8 or something. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. I think they you listed like 6 games there.
That's up. No, it's up to week 8.
Up to week 8. There were like 3 of those games that I felt okay about.
I mean, Steelers, because Steelers
like
are just a weird team.
Steelers and Broncos.
And Broncos, yeah.
So I think
that's Broncos too, like as much as the Panthers. Like, I feel like that's a big game for both teams.
Well, that's
like it goes without saying, but it's. I just feel like in this division,
the Broncos know that they're in project mode, though, whereas the Raiders want to see like some forward momentum there.
Yeah,
and I think again the Raiders have a lot more to prove there, and if they drop a division game, like I think that'll happen probably later in the season to the Broncos.
Okay.
Yeah, like 3-5 makes sense for them. Again, I sort of had them at like a ceiling of like 6 games, so like I didn't have like high expectations. This is relative to like the best guys, but I didn't imagine them to be like bottom 5 type deal.
Yeah,
just because that defense is going to work hard, and that's hard to get, especially when you got teams that don't give a fuck about who they're playing for. Be the little things, man, that people miss out on. Going to scheme me to death, and then I'm just looking like, man, like they're playing for Zac Taylor, all right.
They're not Brandon Staley or Josh McDaniel.
Yeah, man.
All right.
Theoretical. Before we get out of here, would you, if the right package came about, would you be comfortable trading Justin Herbert? A wild question, I know, but
no.
Do you feel like you need his his ceiling / pedigree of great quarterback?
I understand why you're asking me this, because I hinted at this earlier, where there are very valid whispers as to whether Justin Herbert is worth the money he is getting paid. And don't get me wrong, I hear those. To which I would say I would literally rather take a bullet for that guy. my wonderful sweet boy who just wants to go smoke a brisket and go fishing in some random river in Oregon.
Because
instead, he had to deal with 3 years of Brandon Staley. And you know what? He's still here, and that's enough for. We are trauma bonded, Caleb. I will never give up on Justin, whatever his middle name is, Herbert. I forgot, honestly.
I just want to whisper the idea that I think you guys would be just as fine if Tyrod Taylor was out there. As a Tyrod Taylor guy,
I resent that you're trying to make me talk bad on Justin Herbert and or Tyrod Taylor. I resent this.
I'm just like I love Tyrod Taylor, but he's like the perfect like mid-grade sort of quarterback that like looks better within a Harbaugh scheme.
It's like Jacoby Brissett clearly looks like a transition
Jacoby
guy.
Brissett
is a great
perfect for the Chargers.
And Tyrod Taylor is like this guy could win a playoff game. He could also lose this one, but he could win this one. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get that. Yeah.
Did you see that quote that Gerard Mayo had for Jacoby Brissett?
No.
Oh God, I wish I had it, but it was something along the lines of, "Man, like Jacoby Brissett looked really mobile this game, and I told him he's the slowest black quarterback I've ever seen." That shit killed me so bad. I was like, yeah, that sounds like a Chargers quarterback.
Gerard Mayo is secretly organizing a 100-meter sprint between Jacoby Brissett and Russell Wilson as we speak.
It would be awesome. But yeah, I mean, just like theoretically, like, God, I'm trying to think, like.
No, I hate you. I won't even consider it. I respect the president of the Sheldon High School Fishing Club.
Like, I'm trying to think of like if somebody were to give you like a star defensive guy on the level of like Max Crosby, for like and then you end up starting like Tyrod Taylor, but on the flip end, you've got like a pick and a good defensive guy.
I resent this so much. And I even
Most,
gave you a slam dunk on the outro. I even wrote this down too. I hate you.
And this isn't even like this isn't a deal about me disliking the chart. This is more me imagining like what the best setting for Justin Herbert would be to maximize like his style of quarterbacking.
Well, no,
Like,
the problem with Justin Herbert is I
know,
really do believe I guess now outside of Anthony Richardson, he has like the best arm, like straight up arm in the league.
I love the idea of him on like that Pete Carroll Seahawks team, for instance.
Yes, exactly. But the thing is, he went to Oregon, and Oregon, especially the Oregon teams he was on, were so good that he could just bomb it, and they were good enough. Like it didn't matter if he turned the ball over, which he didn't that much really. Like he turned the ball over like a normal rate, I think. Like I forget what his season was the year before he got drafted, but I think it was one of those like 35 and like 10 or 40 and 10 kind of years, which is like and he was just slinging it, and it was at Oregon.
Yeah.
And then the problem is he went from that to one Brandon Staley, which is a vibes issue, but also like I said, his identity became do not turn the ball over, and like I really believe this. I think Herbert, like Mahomes and Stafford, I think are the best / smartest like straight up throwers of the football. Like we praise Mahomes for like the sidearm throws and like the way he like was able to shovel stuff, which is like it's like meme, but like, it's real. Like you know what I mean? Like in Stafford, especially with like when he hits those like cross bodies or like he hits like those outside like the weird arm angles. Like that's like those are special things you can't teach. You just gotta be able to. And I think Herbert has shown he can do those things, but in his brain, he's programmed more to not turn the ball over. / he's not programmed to win games. He's programmed to not lose them, which is like I think I've been trying to ignore this criticism, which is the most valid criticism of, which is like me if I'm a neutral, my main criticism of Justin Herbert is he is objectively good. I'm not sure how great he is because maybe he is just a football robot.
Yeah,
it's like that's the thing.
Which never felt right because when I watch him in
because when you watch his arm, it's just like Jesus Christ, dude.
In those initial Charger seasons, I was like, he had that sort of like confidence that like you get when you watch Baker throw to like Mike Evans and shit.
Yes, exactly. No,
and then I see him like sort of whittled down into like this sort of like conservative quarterback, and I was like, this doesn't seem like the best environment for him to grow as a quarterback.
Because
especially when you hire a guy like Harbaugh, who is great for a football team, not as good on like a quarterback personnel type of deal. Like
because his best season is
fucking great on. He'd probably be great on like the Vikings.
Oh yeah, and the Kevin O'Connell offense, he would be slinging it. Yeah, like no problem.
Which is kind of ideally where I'd want him, and then you guys would get like a defensive piece.
No, you know what it is? It's
Jefferson, but like. I just want to see him like stretch his wings, and this setting doesn't really see him afford that. And you guys sort of have a luxury that you don't necessarily need.
No, I didn't expect to unpack this so much, but I think a good not comparison, But my favorite example here is Josh Allen, because the pessimist view of Josh Allen is like not good enough or turns the ball over. And for me, optimistic is I think he's good enough, and also like I don't care that he turns the ball over because he wins the damn game. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like yeah, he's like
I
it's
guess
just it's baked into the offense. Like yeah, he's gonna throw. He might not. He's gonna, but he might throw a pick or he
that
might fumble the ball on one of these scrambles.
I
But
guess
you
that's
know what I
always
mean?
been
Like
the I guess that's always been the ceiling that I've had for Herbert too. Is I expected him to be like what Josh Allen's become within that Buffalo system, whereas now I'm seeing like Herbert shrink into a pretty modest like
yeah, I hear you.
Kirk Cousins ish sort of quarterback. And I'm just like
So gross.
your potential's higher than that. So it's
That
just
yeah,
like, do you need the luxury and do you need to pay for that luxury versus just feeling out elsewhere and
yeah,
getting, a decent third round type of quarterback?
yeah. I still love the guy.
Just the
I still believe in
theoretical.
him.
I don't think obviously you don't trade that unless like it makes the most sense. But just in theory, like I'm looking at the luxury. Like a lot of teams would kill to have a Justin Herbert. Like the Vikings would love to have a Justin
The
Herbert.
Vikings, I think, are the literal
Honestly,
most primary example. Yeah.
honestly, you guys, as much as I'm like a JJ McCarthy skeptic, again, he looked good under Harbaugh for that reason, and I think he'd probably be a good Charger. But just curious. Yeah, I
Evil,
my bad.
evil thoughts. Evil thoughts. All
I want
right.
best for Justin Herbert.
I'm gonna give mental, emotional Palo Santo because it's a good way to end. Not a good way, but I would like to end talking about football because we talked about a lot and we went super long again. But I think pretty happy with the debauchery we got into. It wasn't as bad as I thought it'd be, truthfully. So.
No,
But I meant to end this with what I am calling, also tentatively calling the 2 minute warning, which is just shouting out like additional shout outs, but we did that to like to like 11 or 12 even. Oh, actually, wait, I did have two things. It's already this long. I'm looking forward to Atlanta being Michael Penix's team, and I'm hoping that is literally this year. Please,
no, it's this year.
yeah, please.
No, it's the and honestly, like I had this one written down, but I deleted it midway while we were recording because I didn't feel strong enough about it. But theoretically, what if Michael Penix is the best quarterback in the class?
Ooh, whoa, that's crazy, and I'm huge. I was huge on Penix.
Just,
I don't want to unpack this too much, but I will
I
say
didn't feel strongly enough to keep it on board, but it was a thought that I had when I was watching. That was like a true overreaction where I was like, "What if this could be like the guy out of the squad of pretty modest quarterbacks?"
I will say, like, I think ceiling is wonky with him, especially a guy he played 4 full years of college football. Well, for him, I think was a pro slash strength. I think coming out of the draft, he was the third best quarterback in the draft. Like just like literally right now. Actually, if we're excluding Drake May, I'd say he was the second even. Like it's him and Caleb. Honestly, I think they were ready to go.
Okay.
And but yeah, I think a team like the Falcons is like perfectly built for Penix. Like if you have a good run game, you hit play action stuff, like great deep ball. He's got like I think his deep ball was just as good as maybe not just as good, but is comparable to like Drake Mays. Like Drake Mays, like, yeah, he has the best arm, but um, yeah, like Penix was the most pro ready. That's what I meant to say. There it is.
I've got a real sicko ass thought.
Oh my god, how did we get here?
Sicko
Go
ass
go
thought
yeah
off of
go.
what you said. What if, right? Because you paid Kirk Cousins a lot of money, you also have another person that's making a lot of money, but is slowly expiring. The Browns are going to want a quarterback. What if you traded Deshaun Watson for Kirk Cousins straight up? There, now, mind you, you're putting Deshaun Watson in the land of Freaknik.
Why are we talking about this?
But you had me thinking because I'm like, okay, if this is going to be Penix's team, you just have Watson expire his contract in Atlanta. Browns get a new quarterback. Real sick. I was like, and that's why I was laughing midway while you were talking because I was like, that's a disgusting thought. Putting Deshaun Watson in a freak ass environment like that, and then trying the Kirk Cousins thing again in Cleveland.
I'd like to stop talking about football now. I'd like to stop.
So,
They have it a mid off. That's crazy.
no, but I thought of that. I thought about that as a trade, and then Meet the Graham started playing in my
Yes, yeah. There you go.
Arkham Asylum ass.
That's gross. Yeah, I think it's time to stop talking about football. Yeah, I am declaring it. No more football. I did have one question before we go. What you got to pick one? I know you got a bunch because obviously you have a bunch. Just give me one. What's your favorite Rich Homie Quan song?
Man of the Year.
Ooh, okay, man.
Man of the Year.
Good man.
Absolutely.
Good man. I don't know why. I've always had a not strange because it's hard. It's like hard to pick off the tour part one, but I've always really my favorite for him has always been War Ready. I don't know why. Strange attachment, but like the tour is like you could pick like
in a real bizarre way. At least when he was like popping and when I was in school, I mostly only heard him like as a solo entity and then on Lifestyle. I didn't hear a lot of people around me playing the tour part one. Honestly,
where were you? What years? So this is like anywhere from
Lakeland.
2012 to 2014. Yeah.
It was Lakeland. I'm in Central Florida.
Okay, so that makes sense because like for me like being
but this was
in an LA suburb, like I think it makes more sense that I was more exposed to him through Young Thug versus like
everybody
real like
a lot of people were calling Young Thug just plainly gay, and they thought that Rich Homie Quan was better.
Yeah, no, I remember
that was a real earnest thing between a lot of us. We loved, both of those first two mixtapes. We loved Thug, but we liked him on "Get the Fuck Out of My Face" rather than like a central like
versus like Thug. No, I get that. Yeah, people like really retcon that history where like people like once Thug got famous, it was like, oh, he's so like. I don't want to like unpack it too much, but it's like, oh, he's like our zany like weird like rap star. And I'm like, they were calling him the F word when he came out. Like, what was that? Those fucking funny ass tweets are like, we smoking. They would.
And mind you, they said all this while still loving his music. Like they were still playing stoner, but they were just like, yeah, he gay a little bit.
Yeah,
like, that was their whole thing. And like honestly, for a while I didn't really get it either because I was like, this dude's a little too weird. I didn't think like more than people like me would like it.
No, it was definitely like Quan because it was more I don't know how to say this without sounding pretentious, but Quan was like more like
he's conventional,
proper.
Yeah,
it was more like like proper, like in the setting and just musically. And then Thug was like, people forget that it took like various steps for it to be like, okay, like you got like because people forget like it's stoner and Old English, which were like
English,
like semi viral. And I was like, oh, this guy's kind of weird, but he makes some good songs. And then it wasn't until like Slime Season, which was like, oh, like okay. And then Barter 6 was like, yeah, we kind of accept this now. And it's like, even after that, it's not until So Much Fun, which like, say what you want about the album. So Much Fun is like, yes, we all accept this now. Yes,
yeah. That was, which I never really understood. I thought that was all sort of synonymous by Barter 6 by that point. But yeah, I mean, the thing is with Thug is there just wasn't like a precedent for him. Whereas with Quan, it was like, okay, like this follows the lineage of the stuff that like Future was teasing.
Like in the most reductive way, but also the most real way. It's like, this is like...
People love Boosie, people love Webby.
Yeah.
And he sort of follows that sort of lineage of like, man, like this is... like you feel it sort of intrinsically, instinctually, really. Whereas with Thug, it was just like, oh, this guy's weird, but he was like a good sort of accent. Like him on like Peanut Butter Jelly with T.I. makes more sense than him as like a solo entity.
Solo guy, yeah.
Yeah, but that shit made me upset. That was legit emotional that whole day. Just playing.
I don't blame you. I know, it's crazy. Like two very different stars, but it's rap is so crazy that we have lost a seminal white and black rap star in Mac Miller and Rich Homie Quan. It's just like, dang, like we're missing
Yeah.
like it's like that's crazy. Like, obviously, like very, historically, like obviously we're talking about like a lot of racial politics and like health, like over generations. But it's like, yeah, so it's like obviously with like black rappers and black stars in general, it's a little more sad. But like, yeah, like Jesus Christ, like we couldn't even get the white boy from Pittsburgh to like live until he was 30. Even like, man,
Yeah.
sad.
Yeah, it just it more than anything it bums me out that like everybody that I came up listening to, you sort of expect to be able to like pass that along down, but now
Yeah,
you can't do that without ending it with death.
yeah.
All like whenever you think about the people that you loved once, all like ends at like a
Like
death
we're gonna
point.
have to explain to future generations, even like people who are kids who are only like 10 to 13 right now, and if they eventually come up on this stuff and they're like, oh, so what's up with Little Mac Miller, Richard McQuan? I'm like, they both passed. I don't know what to tell
Yeah,
you.
and
Yeah,
I wrote about this a couple of years ago too. Like that 2011 to 2014 ish range. It's a lot of people that like died, but their streaming numbers doesn't really indicate
don't
like how big
reflect.
they
Yeah,
are. Yeah,
and because
like
obviously the big one is Snoop. Yeah.
Lil Snoop, Speaker
Bigger
Knockers was
knockers.
another big one. Dobie, like you're looking at guys, Young Pappy. You're looking at
Mm,
guys like that where it's like these guys are all great, but you don't really digest how big they are until the streaming catches on, which is what
mhm.
happened with Dirk. It happened with the Migos. Like
They
people,
lived long enough, or slash were relevant long enough. Yeah,
it took 5 years of the it like Migos was the quickest one, but like the Migos, it took them 4 years ago to get back within that like good graces. With Dirk, it took God
I mean,
his
people forget Migos flopped like
his-
twice before Culture.
yeah, like it like
A huge flop.
pipe it up was just
Pipe it
novelty.
up.
Was just novelty to people. People weren't listening to those mixtapes like that, but the people that were into it were into it.
Yeah.
But it took them 3 years, and then for Dirk, I mean, his peak ended at around 2014, so it took him another like 6 years to be known as like one of the seminal artists. So
Yeah.
it's stuff like that where people sort of get lost within that history, within that time frame. Guys like
We
Quan will probably end up being a victim of that.
I think music, well, especially rap music, but I think music, this is happening to music in general. It's really bad. Is music labels, we're talking about like suit wearing types, like they were too slow to capitalize on what they had or to like grow the artists they had, and now they just happen overnight, and it is obviously way too fast,
Yeah.
and like there are more misses than hits. So it's like,
Well,
yeah,
and I mean, that's just the nature of
it's
gatekeeping
the nature
too
of
at
the
that
game, but you
rate.
know what I mean. It feels like
Gatekeeping happened a lot that way, where like they were still
true.
trying to like maintain a semblance of structure, which is why they try and like anoint guys like Wale, like Big Sean, like Kendrick, like Cole, like Drake, where
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like they need like one or two people at a time to anoint. Whereas, again, that's what favor the structure. Whereas now there's no structure in there's no gatekeeping within the streaming era, or it's just like there's no picking. You just sort of you either quickly nab at it or you don't, and you end up missing out.
Um, I don't know why this statement popped into my head, but I guess like it's a bad figure speech, but like I think it makes sense. It's like Coca Cola doesn't like they sometimes make new flavors, but their whole job is just continuing to make sure that the name Coca Cola
Yep.
versus like I'm not drinking fucking Star. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep drinking Sprite. Get the fuck out of here. I'm
Right.
drinking Star. What the hell? So I guess what I meant to say was like, yeah, for music, it's like, I guess for some, it's just easier to like anoint those guys and latch onto those guys than
They
it is
don't. They
to,
don't have
yeah,
to do the work, and I mean
yeah.
sometimes like what
It's
without
no, it's that old saying, this sells itself kind of thing. Yeah,
right. I mean, on the inverse, like the lack of structure breeds like an Ian, or back in like the blog era, like you had a lot of people you had to parse through at Shitty Bang to find, you know, a Kid Cudi. type of guy,
Yeah.
where it's a lot more lawless, and now we're in a place where
Yeah.
we're slowly starting to pull the other way, and they're currently just trying to figure out like how that makes sense within the current streaming function.
I think we've managed to go longer than Power Hour, which is kind of impressive. But good talk. So this is a lot of fun. And anybody who's still listening, I swear to God, we will try to be better. Next week, I swear to God, we will try to be better.
We were about to wrap at about 1:30, and then
you got me worked up about Justin Herbert, and then I got you worked up about early to mid decade Atlanta rap, which is fine because obviously we love both of those things. But this was a lot of fun. Again, we'll try to make it fun and hopefully shorter next week. Caleb, do you want to sign off with anything?
Follow me on all the socials. Subscribe to the Middle of Nowhere. It'll be.
Oh, I thought you'd have something more fun. No, shut the fuck up. What the heck? That's like a given.
No.
I thought you.
I don't have anything. I don't have anything. Oh, listen to the new Layla album.
Okay,
that's my album. That's an album recommendation for the week.
I've been listening to a lot of Jessica Pratt.
You're so washed.
I don't know. I know. I'm an old man. It's crazy.
I love that album. That's so old all the time.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody who listens to and supports us, and to everybody who hates us. If there are any people, like honestly, if you hate us, please make it known. I would love that. Really. If you would like to let us know your favorite Young Thug or Rich Homie Quan song, please let us know that too. Signing off with wherever and whenever you're listening to us, good morning, good afternoon, and good night. Thank you guys for listening.